has an incredible $1.1 million in his brokerage account. Welcome back to the channel. This is Anthony, and I always like to ask, consider hitting the like and subscribe button if you found this of any value. Just trying to get this channel off the ground. It would be super appreciated, but without taking too much time, let's get started. So today, let me tell you guys a story about two real people. Now, the first real person's name is Bob. So Bob has $0 to his name, and while he's tired of being broke, he decides at 18 years old to start working full-time at a strenuous job with the city. He works what Dolly Parton would call a 9 to 5. Meaning that he works 40 hours a week with weekends off for time to relax and rehabilitate. So Bob is really not afraid of working really hard in this part of his life so that he can create a better tomorrow for his kids and himself. So of the money he was making from his full-time job, he decided to put 25% of his money towards a high-yield savings account because his parents told him that that was the safest place to put his money. And the second choice was him putting it on the inside of his mattress. Meanwhile, the other 75% of his income just went towards bills and living expenses. Bob never tampers with his savings account. Year after year, he consistently contributes to it and watches it grow. So he does that consistently year after year, and now 25 years have gone by. Bob is now 43 years old, and he is now eligible for retirement from his full-time job. And with retirement comes a monthly pension, benefits, and a lot more free time. So that's the story of Bob so far. The second real person's name is Bill, and we're not talking about the dollar bill. Or like one of those ducks that says, "Put it on my bill." Sorry, these are very corny. So just like Bob, Bill also has $0 to his name. But Bill values his free time a lot more than Bob does. And he likes to frequently travel, so he decides at the age of 18 that he's going to work a part-time job at a locally owned store in his town. So Bill just works 25 hours a week with a lot more than just weekends off. So Bill thinks a little bit differently than Bob. He prefers to live life while he's still young. He says that he'd rather experience life today because there's no guarantee for tomorrow. So 75% of his income goes towards traveling around the world with friends, hotel stays, and his small amount of living expenses. So Bill also saves about 25% of his income, but instead of a savings account, he actually invests that money into the S&P 500 index fund, as his parents were investment bankers and they told him that that was the most conservative place to put his money. So a good way to think about an index fund like the S&P 500 is just to imagine about 500 skillful people building a house for you. Now let's say over time things happen, people have injuries, and let's say one person gets injured and can no longer build the house. And while we don't like to see people get injured, you at least have another 499 people to rely on to build that house for you. So by investing in the S&P 500 index fund, you're essentially buying a basket of about 500 different companies. And if they do well, you do well too. And just like in our former example, if one company goes bankrupt, you have 499 other companies to get the job done for you. So Bill consistently invests and never withdraws money from his brokerage account for the next 25 years. That was the story of Bill. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. I want you to comment down below so far, who do you like more, Bob or Bill? So now that we're all acquainted, you, me, Bob, and Bill, let's go over the numbers to see how our two friends, who live very different lives, stack up to one another in the game of accumulating wealth. And the game of happiness, on the other hand, is for another video. So Bob, the full-time city worker, makes about $50 an hour while working 40 hours a week. So that means he's making about $2,000 every single week, or $8,000 every month before taxes. And of that $8,000, he takes home about $6,000 every month after the tax man takes his cut. So like we said, he saves about 25% of his income, which would be about $1,500, and he puts it into a 2% high-yield savings account, which is just enough to keep up with inflation. So after 25 years after rigorous and consistent saving, starting at $0 when he was 18 years old, is now 43 years old with about $450,000 in the bank account. Wow, so that's actually pretty impressive. I didn't expect that. But let's see what happened to Bill. So Bill, the part-time worker, made minimum wage for most of his life, so about $15 an hour. So after working about 25 hours a week, he makes about $375 or $1,500 every single month before taxes. And of that $1,500, he's able to take home $1,300 for, you guessed it, the tax man again. So like we said, Bill saves and invests 25% of his income into the S&P 500 every single month, regardless if the market is up or down. And historically, over the past 50 years, the S&P 500 has returned about 8% every single year, adjusted for inflation. So after 25 years, he's now the same age as Bob at 43 years old, and he now has about $310,000 sitting in his brokerage account. So let's pause for a second and let's look at something. So it looks like both of these people did very, very well for themselves over their life so far. But it does seem in the game of accumulating wealth, Bob did beat out Bill by about $140,000 by the time they were both 43 years old. But that's not the whole story. Let's add a little bit of information to this story. So now that Bob is retired and no longer works his full-time job, he now has a pension giving him about $4,000 every single month just to relax because he worked so hard over the last 25 years. And of course that leaves him with about $3,200 every single month after the tax man. Bob kept the same regimen and saved about 25% of his pension, which is about $800, and put it into his savings account every single month. And Bill, over the course of his lifetime not working as much as Bob, doesn't feel the need to retire yet. He decides to work another 10 years at his part-time job, still investing the same $325 every single month. And of course, Bill, always being the same, has to keep up his travel-esque lifestyle. You can't change that guy, Bill. So now let's see what happens if we add another 10 years to this timeline. Oof, man, it feels like 10 years out there. So with being retired the last 10 years, Bob is about 53 years old and now has about $546,000 in his savings account. Not bad. And that means that Bill is also 53 years old by now. But looking at his investment account, it grew to a whopping $745,000. But let's not even stop there. Let's get even a little bit crazier. What if we add just another 5 years? Bob is now 58 years old and has about $594,000 in his savings account. And Bill, at the same age of 58 years old, has an incredible $1.1 million in his brokerage account. Isn't it crazy what happens when time gets a hold of compound interest? And I still think these ages are fairly young, considering that the average person retires at about 65 years old. So yes, life is not that simple. There are a lot more variables, like did he have kids? Did he keep working after retirement? Does he have a house to pay for? Are there health complications? Or even in Bill's case, did he spend a lot on traveling? How much were plane tickets, hotel fees, general health complications? But I just tried to use easy numbers based on their income to keep the calculations as easy to understand as possible. And while I know there's a lot of variables and a lot of things you can't control, I think their lifestyles are one that you can replicate yourself. Proper budgeting and planning can definitely allow you to save about 25% of your income, especially if you're starting at 18 years old. Now, to really drive it home, the main point of this video is not to say that Bill made $1 million faster than Bob, or that even Bob in the first 25 years of his life did better than Bill as far as saving money is concerned. But it does shed a light on lifestyle choices and that the right path is not always as simple as people make it out to be. Because you can see here, if you value a lot of your free time and only work a part-time job for most of your life, so long as you have a solid and consistent investment regimen, you will do as well or better than those that work full-time but don't invest at all. So at the end of the day, you have to live with your decisions and you have to make the ones that make yourself the most happy. And you can't be swayed by the opinions of others about what the right path is or what the responsible path is. So whether you work full-time and don't invest or you work part-time and you do invest, you could really live whatever life you want and you'll end up in the same place. And you really don't want to miss out on it while you can. I'd rather be like Bill. Thank you all so much for watching. I spent a good amount of time on this video and it really hits home and touches deep in my heart. So as always, like and comment down below if you found this of any value, and if there are any other topics that you want me to venture into next. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.